Hey, Internet, thank you for watching and clicking this. Before we begin, I just gotta say that this whole podcast discussion video thing was kind of off the cuff during one of my streams, and as a result, the audio quality and specifically the music is not quite balanced, and the music is too loud, and there's a lot of like interruptions on stream and on camera because we weren't really planning to do this. We just kind of thought it'd be a good way to spark some conversation, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So in the future, when we create more of these, we'll try to make sure that the medium is actually a little more palatable for people. So please bear with the very human errors on this first trial run that we're doing, and hopefully you can look past that and enjoy what we have to say, and hopefully we'll see you in the comment section. So thank you. I want to do, okay, let me ask you this. Would you be down to do a Digimon type podcast? And I was thinking about how I would want this structured, because ultimately I don't want it very structured. Because
structure is none.
I like just kind of loosely freeforming stuff, and I have topics that I have outlined that I want to do, and like things that we'll discuss, and it would just kind of be whenever we see fit. So not necessarily a weekly thing, maybe like a bi-weekly or a monthly thing, and we just talk, right? And I have topics planned out for like this is just going to be like a critical discussion of the game and the stuff we like and the stuff we don't like. And then that one, unfortunately, although this is a critical thing, it's not structured very well. Maybe we should take the time on stream to structure and talk about the things that we want to talk about. But then, like, moving forward, probably like a week after, like this week or something, we talk about launch, right? Like, what was the English 1.0 like, and the distribution, and then cards that, like, card prices and decks that are coming and blah. And then, you know, we do this again in a month, or maybe not, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or a month or whatever. And then we talk about what's going on in the Digimon world. How are things going toward release and stuff like that. And, you know, we just talk about whatever. And maybe we talk about jank brews and just whatever. Just news that's going on in the Digimon world. Easy stuff. Doesn't have to be super serious. And we go with this under the context that we are two average players. We're not
very average players.
Very average players. So that's my thought.
Oh yeah, that's fun. And honestly, that just gives me an excuse to like look into this game deeper.
Yeah.
Because I just haven't really had an excuse. I really wanted to. I just never really could justify it.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. So I was just thinking, like, at some point, well, I'll make like a fancy overlay and stuff, but maybe for episode 1, it's just gonna be sloppy because I thought about this on the cuff.
It's episode 1. Come on.
So as all episode 1s should be.
I don't know. I kind of like the fact that I'm talking with the Digimon here. It's nice.
Chatty Digimon.
Yeah.
Digimon does talk a lot in the show, if I recall.
Oh, does he?
I think so. I think people find him annoying because he doesn't like shut up. I've never actually watched the show.
That fits you extremely well.
I told you, he's my Digimon dude. Alright. I think you've never seen Tony's face, really? Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. So starting now, right? We are doing a very impromptu potentially podcast / discussion video. I guess people on my stream, they already know me, but my name is Vincent. This is Tonino. I guess his name is actually Tony.
My name is Tony.
And yeah, we wanted to talk about the Digimon card game. We've been playing it for, geez, I don't know how long. A week? 2 weeks? Has it been 2 weeks?
About 3 weeks now, actually.
Really? Okay. So we're relatively new to the game, and we are primarily Magic the Gathering players with history in the Pokemon card game. And we were pleasantly surprised at how entertaining this game has become. And with the English release just around the corner, I thought it'd be really interesting to talk a little more critically about the game as a whole, the mechanics, what it does really well at, and things that it could see improvement on in the future. So we're really just going to be going over our thoughts about it. And before we go any further, allow me to just start off by saying that I genuinely like this game, and anything that I say that may come off as negative or mixed is because I'm very enthusiastic about the game, and I want to see it succeed. Tony, I don't know how you feel, but
yeah, pretty much. I'm bored with this game. It's mostly positives. I won't lie to you. There are some negatives, but overall, I'm deeply in love with this game.
Yeah. So
and I will say this again, and I'll continue to say this. It's a lot more fun than I ever expected it to be.
We've had to say that to so many friends that like, because everybody's response is, "You're playing Digimon? Like they have a card game? It still exists?" So we have to explain like, "Oh, it's a new card game, and it's more fun than we thought." But yeah, if this goes well, then in the future we'll be doing more of these. We'll actually have like an overlay and like a proper thing. But this was just kind of an impromptu discussion we've had on stream. Yeah, literally just decided like, hey, let's just do this. So pardon the Discord overlay. But I guess starting off, the things that I really want to talk about first and foremost that we have to discuss is an overview of the game itself and the mechanics. We'll talk about the things that we like, and then just kind of go into some other stuff that, you know, just kind of down the road. So for anybody who is potentially interested in this game, anybody in my stream chat who's kind of been watching and very confused today, or anybody who finds this on YouTube, I'm not going to do like a full how to play video because I feel like there are already a lot of good ones out there on the internet that you can find, and there will be more that'll encompass more than I possibly could in this. But a brief overview of the game itself is it's a 1v1 card game where the goal is to attack your opponent directly after knocking out all 5 security cards that are subsequently destroyed by direct attacks. And you do that by attacking with Digimon, the aforementioned stars of this game, except Digimon are a little different, and I'm trying to see if I can get an overlay of the cards, but again, this is very impromptu and I don't know how to work this, so I guess we're just gonna have to go straight audio here, I'm sorry. But the Digimon are a little interesting because they have effects that both are active on those particular Digimon and have effects that only carry over when you evolve on top of it. So it has this evolution mechanic that's critical to the game, because when you evolve your Digimon, they become stronger and you gain access to more options as the game goes on. I shouldn't use the word option because there's a category of cards called options, which to Magic players are equivalent to like instant sorcery cards, and to Pokemon, option cards are like trainer cards. Anyways, aside from that, whenever you play a card, you use resources in the game called memory, and many of you are probably familiar with things like mana in Magic the Gathering, but memory is interesting because if anyone's played the Chrono Clash games, effectively the game starts at 0 and it can go from 10, so 0 to 10 on your side and 0 to 10 on your opponent's side. And when you play whenever you play a card, you spend memory and it gets pushed towards your opponent's side. So if I have 3 memory and I spend, let's say 5, then it gets pushed over to 2 on my opponent's side. And anything over 0 instantly ends your turn, and then it goes to your opponent's. If you play Chrono Clash, it's the exact same thing. I didn't know that Chrono Clash existed before this. Like, did you?
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
until you started mentioning it.
And that's no offense to like the 12 Chrono Clash players out there. Oh, that's really me. But
no offense.
But yeah, no, like it's a cool system. Apparently, it's been out for quite a while, and it's been used in multiple games. But this is my first experience with it, and it's been pretty fun. But that's more or less the game in a nutshell. Other than that, like there's attacking and blocking, kind of somewhat similar to Magic the Gathering. You can only attack your opponents directly, but if your creature or your Digimon is suspended or tapped, like if they're pivoted 90 degrees, then you can attack them directly. Also, when you Digivolve, you draw a card, which is great because it incentivizes Digivolving, and a couple of other random things. There's no max hand size. The security cards. Do what?
With actual blockers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can only block if there's a blocker mechanic on the card. And there's some other stuff, like there's a raising area, which we'll talk about. Again, this is not a full like how to play video, it's just kind of going over what the flow of the game is like. So I guess like on that note, the things that I really like, I'm just gonna start this off and say that the evolution mechanic, I've said this like at least 3 or 4 times on stream. The evolution mechanic is it's the driving force of the entire game. It's my favorite part. From both a flavor and a mechanical perspective, it's great. On the mechanics side, you are obviously incentivized by playing more and more Digimon, because when you Digivolve something, you're rewarded for doing that. You draw a card, and then you get more things to do. The evolution costs are also cheaper whenever you Digivolve, which is great, because again, further incentivizes it, and then you get more abilities. But there's this like weird flavor side of things, because if anyone has seen Digimon, like there are specific evolution lines that theoretically always happen, right? Like Agumon always turns into Greymon until he doesn't. And he turns into Numamon or like Tyrannomon or something weird. And in this game, you can do that, and as long as the card is the same color, you can evolve into anything of the same color that goes up a level. So your red level 3 will always turn into a red level 4. And that red level 3 could be Agumon, and then he can turn into like Dark Tyrannomon or something. But if you go into Greymon and you continue with the actual like family line, you are rewarded with positive synergies. So like Agumon's thing is just high offense and this crazy boost of power mixed with extra attacks. And if you go from Agumon to Greymon and so on and so forth, you get rewarded for that. And I love that. I love that the whole game forces you to try to progress the game, which I don't know, I think that's neat. What do you think, Tony? What do you like about this mechanic?
Honestly, it's just like you said, you're incentivized to keep evolving and keep maintaining your board at all times, especially with the inheriting mechanic. It's great because you can have some crazy combos that winning the game just outright.
Like giving everything retaliate, because that's that's what you've done.
Retaliate. Or like just stack up security attack to where one hit can just knock out someone's entire security card supply.
Like you had a game that gave what, security attack +2 or something?
Plus 2, yeah. And if I had played correctly, I would have gone +3.
How did you do that? You had Greymon, and then
I had Greymon, and I also had, oh gosh, who was it?
You had something else. I don't remember what it was that gave it. It was disgusting.
Anyways,
the point is that you can get combos that, you know, the deck, obviously your deck would hopefully synergize around, but that doesn't necessarily force you to have to play that way, because sometimes you have to hard cast stuff, or sometimes you have to evolve into something that you maybe
or
not
sometimes you just gotta stack it and get rid of it. Like
the other part that really goes well with the whole evolution mechanic is the breeding or raising area. And for whatever reason, people don't like the name breeding area, so the community at large has slowly tried shifting it to raising area. Like if you play on Tabletop Simulator, like I think it says raising area.
Raising, yeah.
So the community is trying to change it, but the idea is that you actually have a separate deck of 5 cards that are strictly Digitama or Digi-Eggs in English. And those guys are little baby Digimon that can't be, for the most part, interacted with at all in this zone. It's a special zone where you can raise Digimon, and then when you're ready, you can push them out. And it's great because when you do this, not only are you establishing a board, but it's encouraging you to Digivolve, which again is drawing you cards. And it's, man, I don't know, coming from like the Is It Spellslinger, you know, like Stroke of Genius, Blue Sun Zenith, just draw 20 cards. Coming from like having to play a spell that's strictly based on card draw to just like being rewarded for playing the game, it feels so good. I don't know, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like you don't, especially since when you Digivolve the first time, you pay nothing for it. You draw a card.
The
and
level 3 is usually free.
Your board. It's great, and it's protected.
And
no one can
like it's almost always a free draw. Generally.
And it's weird for it to like have so much, like give you so much and no drawbacks, and still feel fair and amazing no matter which side of the board you're on. It's great.
It feels pretty good, I have to admit. But
although I will say it does kind of feel bad when you clear the board, you do everything you can, and it's like,
and there's the one guy. Yeah, that's definitely like a blessing.
I cannot touch.
That's a blessing and a curse. But honestly, like, I don't.
You can see everything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's the raising area is so telegraphed that, you know, it's kind of your responsibility at that point to prep for that accordingly. Another thing, kind of related to like just general feel-good mechanics that I really like, that adds this like crazy level of a complexity to the game, is the memory gauge, memory system. That because you do this I don't want to say way too much because evidently it works, but
sometimes
when you when you hear about this memory system, right, and you know that your turn instantly ends when the memory is then pulled to 1 on your opponent's side, in your brain you're trying to maximize efficiency and play as close to 0 as you possibly can because you don't want to give your opponent that much memory to work with because then they get bigger turns in general. But one thing you can do is you could just drop a bomb, this giant Hail Mary of a card, and give your opponent, you know, 5, 6, 7, even 10 memory. And just play this giant this giant creature. And what it does is that it gives your opponent time to react. You give them so many resources that, you know, they could potentially play a removal spell, which in this game, removal is very expensive, mind you.
Very expensive and very rare.
Yes. Which we'll talk about that later, but just know that right now, like, when you think of removal in a game like Magic the Gathering, you're thinking of something that's going to cost you anywhere from like 2 to 4 mana, or even 1 mana if you play like Path to Exile. But in this game, removal is often 5 to 8 mana for a single target removal, mind you. So just keep that in mind. But what's really cool about this is that if somebody plays like a really giant creature, you have the option to play the removal, or you can play 3 or 4 individual Digimon, or you could evolve your current board state and then just hit, you know, the ceiling of like hit the boss monster of your deck, and that's totally fine. That works. And I think that's a really unique aspect of the game too. That also the ability to drop something massive on turn 1 and then just say go is very jarring to me, and that creates this new level of gameplay that I'm not used to. Because I've had, like, you've had games where you're just like, hey, I can't really do much, so I'm just gonna drop a level 6 or a level, not really, maybe like a level 5, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. Give you all the energy in the world, but it's funny because sometimes, even though you have plenty of cards in your hand, plenty of energy disposed to you, you still really sometimes can't do much with it.
It's
weird. You have many options. It's not like, you know, this game doesn't give you the options to use. It's just sometimes it's weird. I can't really explain it too well, but you kind of like, they give you all the energy, but you're still not overpowered. You're still not
it still
strong.
Feels pretty balanced as a whole. Also, I have to apologize because I know, like, when I post this on YouTube, somebody's gonna say it a million times. We know it's called memory. For the last 3 weeks, we've been tripping up. Specifically me.
I've been saying that, huh? Yeah.
I have too, don't worry. But we know it's memory. It's very hard for us to, like, we've played Magic for like 8 years, and we're trying to not say memory, and then energy comes up because that's from Pokemon and also from Magic in Kaladesh block.
Yeah.
So we're trying. Hopefully one day we'll get better at it. When the game comes out, we'll stop doing it.
At least we're close to it, you know, energy when I call it. At least give us that.
I've already done that. But yeah, I think going on from memory, because I think the memory mechanic is very interesting, and the one thing that it does is that it hard caps you at 10, which is very smart because it prevents you from just turn 1 playing a Mega, which is a level 6, which is the second highest level in the game. You can't play level 6 or level 7. Yeah, like they're usually like 11 up, so like that's very smart and it works. But yeah, I think really, so here's where we get into like the meat of the conversation, because the game as a whole is great. We really like the game. And we also know that the English meta of the game is going to be slightly more limited. We have been playing with the Japanese cards, so we kind of know what's coming down the horizon. But we want to talk about places where the game can improve and things that it's already doing to improve. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about a small thing first, because we're already on this topic anyway, and then we'll get into the big one. And the small thing is just like mulligans. And just starting hands. And really, this game has no mulligans. You're stuck with the hand that you get. And the reason that you're stuck with no hand, or you're stuck with no mulligans, is because you can hard cast pretty much anything. So unless you are in a situation where your hand is literally filled with level 6s and up, which at that point, you're either really unlucky or you've built your deck incorrectly. And I think it's only happened once in the 3 weeks that we've played. And that was me, not in the beginning of the game, that was me at the end, like, toward late game, yeah. And I had like 3 Imperial Dramons in hand and nothing else. So like, the situation never happens, so you can always just hard cast stuff. But the fact of the matter is, because this game is so fast paced, even though you're just hardcasting something bigger, you're probably just going to get swarmed by a wider board. And it's this weird conversation because, I don't know about you, Tony, I feel like I could take it or leave it if they ever introduced a mulligan. Like, if they didn't introduce mulligan, I'd be fine. And if they introduced it...
I don't feel like it's necessary because of how the energy works. And only because you get like, oh, I can drop something huge, the way that the security store works as well, more bodies on the board is just better overall. So, I could take the mulligan.
Like,
or leave it. Honestly, I'll leave it. I will, if they implement it, I'd probably be more on the negative side.
Sure.
Initially.
So... This is something that like a lot of people have been very it's people have been very like divisive on this topic. Let me ask you this, because like Pokemon has a mulligan rule where I don't know the exact things, I'd have to look it up, but back when we played, like Pokemon had a mulligan rule that was something along the lines of if you didn't have a basic, you revealed your hand, and then I think you went down one and then you got another set again, right? So if they introduced a rule where they said something along the lines of, if you didn't have a rookie, a level 3, you have to, not may, but like you have to reveal your hand. And then draw 4 cards, and then hopefully you have a rookie. Would you take that, or would you rather just say, no, I'd rather just leave it as is?
I would rather just leave it as is.
Interesting.
I like rookies.
Yeah.
But I've had multiple times where I didn't have a rookie.
Yeah.
And I still did pretty well. Even I got close to winning or won.
That's the hard part, and I think really the driving force of this mulligan discussion is that not having a rookie in the beginning is rough. And granted, yes, this is a deck building thing that you as a player should just be accountable for. And I would say that oftentimes, like in your 50 card deck, it's very common for most decks, at the current 1.0 meta, to have 12 to 16, even 18. That's kind of extreme. 12 to 16 rookies, right? So you've got a pretty good chance of drawing into one. And, those games happen where you do brick and you don't get a rookie. But do you feel like those are overall winnable?
Honestly, yeah, I do believe so.
How do you feel about Rookie Rush versus... Rookie Rush is... Okay,
well,
Rookie Rush is...
I have a personal vendetta against Rookie Rush, but, I've also played it against you and you were using the red...
Omnimon? The Omnimon Turbo?
Omnimon, yeah. And I got wiped. I got destroyed.
Rookie Rush is the deck where it's an aggro deck where you just play a bunch of like almost entirely level 3s and you just go at it. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the gist. I'm trying to think.
I feel like it is a rough one to go up against. It is. You have to draw in. You have to draw.
But
perfect draws every single time.
But I also guess that like that's kind of a situational, like against a specific deck, because I feel like do you feel like against other decks, non-Rookie Rush decks, if you don't get a rookie, is it still playable?
I think it's still playable.
Yeah.
Against any other deck that I've played against, I still feel like it's playable.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is probably like enough reason to just say forget mulligans. And I think it's fine.
Because you'll eventually get a rookie, and as long as you get a rookie within 2 or 3 turns, 2 or 3 turns, I'd say you're good. Anything above that, you're unluckiest man in the world, or your deck is still properly.
That, and also like you can evolve whatever you played, whatever you hardcasted, so you can still draw.
You hardcast, boom. You have a bunch of high levels. You got a 5-drop, or you can go into a 6, level 6.
So it's not the end of the world. So, okay. I guess now we should get on to what I feel is the actual biggest room for improvement in this game in general. And to me, that's defensive options, since we're talking about Rookie Rush. So, okay, before we go any further, I have to just say that defensive options do not equal control. Defensive options do not necessarily equal defensive playstyle. A defensive option is just something that you can do while you're on the back foot to restabilize. That's primarily it, right? So the game, by default, has its core mechanic in the security stack being somewhat of a defensive option, in that when your opponent attacks you, it's not just a safe attack. There is usually some kind of countermeasure. So that's like the game's like initial version of it. And then obviously the game has removal, and the game has removal attached to creatures, which is neat. But I feel like we're not quite at the point where we're not at a point where you can stabilize from a massive blowout. And there is an argument that can be said where, you know, if you are repeatedly on the back foot, you should lose. And that's true. I definitely agree with that. But then the hardest part about this game is when you're behind on board, you're kind of just out of luck because of the fact that blockers can only block once. If your opponent has, let's say, like 3+ Digimon on field because they're playing hyper aggressive, there's oftentimes very little that you can do because of either just the overall cost of removal or the lack of blockers overall, because generally decks play 4 blockers, which is fine in like a mid-range game, but not so fine against aggro specifically. And then security is just not quite where it needs to be. Now, I will say that down the road, we are seeing more being done with security. I think it's booster set 3 where we get security Digimon, where like if you reveal a security card and it's a Digimon, then that at the end of the turn the Digimon goes onto your field, so like you get to play it basically for free. So like we're seeing more, but really the problem, well, I don't want to say problem, but like the biggest room for improvement that the card game could use is that we need to see more. Really, just like we need to see more conditional board clears and conditional removal that don't inherently punish just straight aggro. And like, this is weird. How do I want to say this? I had this better formulated in my brain. we want something that like allows players to come back without abusing said mechanic. I don't know if you have a better way to word that. Maybe if you can get to what I'm talking about.
Not really. I mean, I understand the gist of it, but yeah, it's kind of hard to explain it because really there is no proper example, especially with this game being so early as it is. There's no correct way of saying this is a proper comeback mechanic, taking everything into account. But there definitely needs to be some way to climb back from just getting steam.
Yeah. So I have ideas, but I kind of want to piggyback off of that because I think this is the first game where both you and your opponent, at some point in the game, if you were looking at the board state, you can just instantly say, I lost. And then your opponent will go, yeah, probably. And it's like pretty well decided. And yes, obviously, like there are some things like the security stack, you have no idea what's going to be in it, or you don't know what your opponent's going to have in hand. But unlike games like Magic, where you have like instant speed of removal or instant speed instant speed interaction, in this game, if it's your opponent's turn and they just have more units than you have security cards, you just lose. Like, well, you know, provided like they don't have blockers and stuff. So like, there's this weird feeling where you can't come back from a game and your opponent just overruns you with like a bunch of rookies or level 3s or like level 4s or just hard cast stuff. Or they have something in their breeding/raising area that's just sitting there that's just like, so your raising area is often just like an extra bullet just to shoot your opponent sometimes. And there are many moments where you just sit there and think to myself, like, I can't win this, and he and I both know it. And then you just agree that the game's over. And that feels kind of bad.
Yeah, because unfortunately, like for example, using the security as a method of turning back, the only one that I can think of right now is Red with
Terraforce, Gaiaforce? Terraforce.
This is the only, like, yeah.
Yeah, just kill something.
Kill something, boom, done. You can try to climb from that.
I mean,
no other car. I don't think any other.
In 1.5, I think maybe 1.0 blue, but definitely 1.5 blue has some stuff. Because I know in my Vmon deck, if I get like Desperado Blaster and Positron Laser, like those will like tap everything down and return stuff. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, there's like, okay, yeah, there's not a lot. There's multiple other colors that are just kind of getting screwed over in the security section.
Yeah.
With removal, I mean,
removal's a catch-22 because like at current, you know, we're on early deck building, so maybe like, you know, 2 years from now the way we build decks will change. But as of right now, you don't play a lot of option cards to begin with, and even the decks that are option heavy still play less than 25% of options. So it's very creature-based, which means that if you're already behind on the board, your creature has to kill something immediately when it comes out. And most creatures that immediately kill something when they come out are either very expensive, which allow your opponent to snowball further, or have a condition that is unsynergistic with what you're doing. Yeah. Which brings me to this idea of like, I think if the game had conditional removal that said something along the lines of, if you have X less security cards than your opponent, or if you control X less Digimon than your opponent, then, you know, destroy 1-2 creatures or something. Like, things that you can't use while you're ahead. Because I think that's where removal gets scary, where the player who's ahead just can continue spamming that removal, and that's where it gets a little more problematic.
Well, also the kind of double-edged sword on that one is you're punishing people for doing well in the game and rewarding those who are not. So that can open up its own little thing there.
Yeah, I could see that. But then also, like, would you say that, like, in Magic the Gathering, something like a board clear is also to that same effect, where if somebody's doing reasonably well and they get board wiped, are they being punished for playing well?
Yeah, but here's the thing with Magic as well, is that it's so much easier to recover just because you have much cheaper ways of filling up your board.
Man. Okay.
Clearing board.
You're the guy who plays. Yeah, but you're the guy who also plays like Oloro in Commander, and like.
Yes, I am usually the
Mono Black Zombies, the deck that literally reanimates itself. So like, but also that's kind of a testament to like the viability of it in a sense.
Yeah, and also it's like you can't really. I have a hard time kind of separating comparing the two of them there, because most colors have a way to just go for it or recover from it. Like every color has it now.
Yeah.
Right now with Digimon, it's just so fresh and new that even with the newer cards that I have out.
Yellow has actual recovery, which is a mechanic where you can put a card from the top of your deck onto your security pile. And yellow is interesting because it has interactions between that, where you can basically remove things to give yourself buffs and give your opponents debuffs, or you can add cards back on to stabilize. So, like, the idea of defense is present in the game. It's just not as it's just not as fleshed out as it could be, and
it's very individually too. Yeah. It's not dispersed evenly to everybody. Just a lot of multiple colors are just being left out.
And I think at some point we'll probably see more. And I was gonna say that we're not game designers, but that's not true. But I'm not a card. I can't say that either. I'm not a TCG player designer, so I can't really speak on like, you know, how Bandai chooses to add on to these things. But I will say, like, the cards that they have been showing have been phenomenal, where they're adding on new mechanics and new archetypes rather than just.
A lot of complaints are being solved.
Yeah, they're. I also don't want to say. I don't want to say complaints, because like a complaint would insinuate that like this is like a negative thing. Right. This is like a room for improvement area, and yeah, they are. A lot of those things are being addressed. There's also like tamers, which tamers are. I really hate. I'm sorry that we keep using Magic the Gathering terms for people who just want to talk about Digimon. But tamers are persistent effects, kind of like enchantments in Magic, or like stadiums, or like stadiums in Pokemon, where they offer a one-sided board effect. Well, generally a one-sided effect to your board, and they just stay forever. And once they stay there, they're just there, well, forever, and they don't do anything except for like maybe they're memory fixing, or they will like accelerate the game, or but they don't really do anything. And even stuff that like they're doing in Booster Set 4, which is slated to release in Japan next month, they're finding ways to interact with tamers onto the battlefield. So like, the initial problem with tamers is that they're expensive to play usually, and once you play them, they just sit there. But then Bandai was like, oh, we have an idea. And it fits with the flavor of the Digimon universe. So, you know, they're adding new options, and at some point, when the more sets there are, there's going to be a critical mass of cards where, okay, yeah, now we have all of these different options for removal. Now we have all of these different options for creature-based, creature-based removal that progresses you. And this is a weird thing too. Like, do you balance hard removal, like just an option card that's removal, and just accept the fact that you're going to be behind, or do you give it like a condition, or do you go the route of you create a Digimon that has removal, but that Digimon has to be Digivolved or hard-casted or stuff, because they're already doing those things. But
Chimeramon.
Yeah, exactly. Chimeramon's a really good example for that. So you could have more of those, but you just have to give yourself more conditions that prevent your opponent, not the opponent, that prevent the winning player specifically from snowballing, because the game already has a pretty big snowball problem, I would say. But to counter that, when you're not snowballing and you're going toe to toe, and you're going 1-for-1 with your creatures and you're doing trades and everyone's evolving, that's where the game really shines. And I think trying to find the balance between that gameplay and maintaining it, that's where the game really needs to go. To the point where when the game becomes imbalanced, board clears and removal and stabilizers should find a way to rebalance it so that you're back at that teeter-totter thing, so then you can have a fair chance. I think that's what the game really needs to do, and that's... I don't know, I feel like we could talk about this subject all day long because it's hard.
Yeah.
But also, maybe you can talk more blockers. Which they're doing, too. They're adding more blockers.
Yeah. This is what, like one blocker per?
There's one blocker per color for sure. Black gets a couple more because black is the blocker color. And then, like, in newer sets, purple's getting more blockers, and I think red has a couple more. Like, you'll see more. And I think what's interesting about that is that creates a deck design, a deck building decision that you as a player have to make, right? Like, because blockers generally have a downside to that, where if you attack with a blocker, you give your opponent 2 memory. Usually that's the case, and that just makes blockers more incentivized to not swing when able to. With the exception of black, because again, that's what black's whole shtick, so they have blocker synergy. But that's the big thing. The other part, really, I don't know. I think that's really the big, like, that's the massive thing that I wish they would fix, is just comeback mechanics that don't feel bad. And I don't know, security Digimon are kind of going that route where, your opponent is not, your opponent should not be fully punished for playing the game well and for attacking, right? Like, if they attack and they are always and they're always terrified of attacking, I think you've done something wrong. I think the security stack as a whole works really well because they still have to be cautious when attacking, right? Like, if you're attacking with a rookie, you can almost guarantee that rookie's gonna die. So it encourages you to set up a little bit more before going for it, and I think that's fine. But you don't want to punish the player who's winning, or not winning, but who is on the offense, and you don't want to reward the player who is getting hit. So I think Security Digimon is like a happy medium Security Digimon, like the ones that get summoned on reveal. I think those are neat because the player who is attacking still has the exact same risk reward as they always have, and then the player who is defending gets a body, which is cool. Honestly, I think that's probably the best they could do. No, there's probably something smarter. I'm not an intelligent person. We're very average players, and we haven't won any card game tournaments or anything. We are literally just enthusiasts.
Most of our experience is Magic. That's why you'll always hear comparisons, and we do have a little bit of Pokemon. Yeah,
we've played our fair share of Pokemon tournaments. So one final game mechanic thing that I really just wanted to a game mechanic thing that I wanted to discuss that I wanted to talk about during the Mulligan thing, but it just kind of fell to the wayside. And this is not something that everybody agrees upon, and Japan's already not doing this. And I understand that it's probably not going to be a thing anyway, but I just think it's an interesting point. And that's sideboarding. And this is instantly where YouTube, if people already have thumbs down the video, it's getting thumbs. You said sideboarding? What? But sideboarding is such a contentious thing, but I feel like it really lends well to a game like this because at least in the current state of the game, there are a lot of matchups where you kind of just lose, and you could your choices are to either create a toolbox, right? So right now in the early meta, it's projected that we have Omnimon Turbo, which is a kind of like a go tall strategy mixed with removal. So it's going big. In fact, you're going to the biggest creature in the game. And then you have Rookie Rush, which is a really quick go wide rush down. And then you have Purple, which is kind of like a tempo value mid-rangey thing. And theoretically, it's supposed to be a rock paper scissors meta. That's the idea. But what we find, wife. Well, I knew this was gonna happen at some point.
Yeah, it's gotta have to happen.
Well, carry on, Tony.
But
talk about
those three. I still feel like right now, with the meta how this currently is, Purple is still lacking. answers to counteract the rushdown and the I keep forgetting his freaking name. Omnimon. Now the rushdown, it's pretty much taking advantage of the fact that doesn't matter how big the creature is, it still automatically takes out one security card no matter who you're attacking with.
It's impromptu as it gets.
it's that's the more realism to it. But I still feel like right now in current meta, of course, February it hits, I believe we'll have in a better state. But right now, I still feel like you don't have many responses to deal with the rushdown.
So
you have to take them out early as possible, and many decks, many colors, even purple right now, don't have the answer for
it. Let me ask you this though, because this is the counter argument that a lot of people against sideboarding have said, is that it. Okay, there's actually two arguments. So argument number one is that sideboarding creates I don't want to say degenerate, but we'll just say degenerate gameplay, because it allows for not just aggressive. I don't want to use strictly aggressive decks because it applies to everything. It allows for decks that have the edge in the matchup to just snowball and accelerate what they're doing against their opposing matchup, and then also it has a negative effect on just general deck building, where you as the player should be accountable for your bad matchups. So what do you think about those two arguments?
The second one, let's just start with the second one because that was the easiest one. I do not see how it affects your ability to make decks.
Yeah,
it's part of it. Your sideboard is part of how you respond. You have your main deck, which is pretty much you're testing the water to see how you're doing, and then the side is just a response to it. It's still taking strategy to what you believe you struggle with in your current deck, the current meta, and any possibility of different changes that just might have to encounter. It still enforces smart and creative deck building skill. I don't see how that damages it.
Yeah, also your opponent gets to do the same thing.
Exactly. If you have responses to his deck, he'll have the same.
So
you're still in even footing there.
So let me ask you this though: do you think that it's a problem against, let's say you're playing against, like, you're playing Omnimon, right? You're playing Omnimon, right, and you know your opponent's playing Rookie Rush. So then you're like, oh well, they're playing Rookie Rush. Let me just tech in a bunch of extra blockers or something. Like, do you think that's a problem? Or better yet, Omnimon against like purple, right? And you're like, oh, this guy is trying to play like slow value town. Let me just tech out a bunch of my, like extra level like 5s and 6s, and then just put in a bunch of more rookies so I can swarm them before they can get their value out. Do you think that's a problem?
No, because again, they have a sideboard too. They can respond to anything like what's going on. They can take out as well, and as long as there's, of course, the responses in the different colors to be able to play against each other like that, I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
I still don't.
No, I'm on the same boat as you, so I get that. But also, like, there's the reality that Japan and their I think actual Japanese tournaments are not sideboarding anyway. So like that's the reality of this is just not going to happen. But I think that's just an interesting talking point that I think would be really neat. And
but I also believe that not being able to sideboard it's bottlenecks the meta.
You think so?
I believe so. Just because you build for the strongest, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do that, and you can't respond to different decks. And I feel like it just makes it to where it's just 2-3 different decks when you can have multiple.
Well, I think
if you have a sideboard, I feel like you can still answer a lot better.
I see where you're getting at, but I also feel like that kind of just depends on the overall health of the game, right? Like, because you got to think, like, even in 1.5 right now, because everyone's speculating in 1.0 we've got 3 decks and that's kind of it. But in 1.5, those 3 decks, not only do they still exist, but people are still making decks in 1.5 or in Japanese booster set 3.0 or whatever it's called. But you've got like the Imperial Dramon deck, you've got the Ragnar Lordmon deck, Blitz Greymon, you've got green, like just the green ramp turbo deck with Argomon and Ceresmon. You've got they just made a blue-green aggro deck. There's a bunch of other stuff. Also, to the people in my chat, Agent Bimo, what's up, dude? We're making an impromptu podcast for everyone who's literally just tuning in right now. I'm sorry that this is super impromptu. For our second episode 2 post-launch, we'll actually have like a dedicated time slot and like an outline and like things we're gonna talk about. This was like, we decided this. We chatted about it on Discord before this, and then I was literally on stream. I was like, dude, let's do it right now as we're playing a game. So it's super impromptu. I'm sorry. We're talking about the Digimon card game. Anywho, so yeah, that's sideboarding in a nutshell. I think really, if the game is healthy, sideboarding adds an extra layer to it. It's like a cherry on top to me. And I see what you're saying, right? Because like, if you can tech for the best decks while still playing your own, then there's this like extra layer of like Yomi. I don't know why I just used the fighting game Japanese term, but like there's this like extra Yomi layer of like, you gotta, I know that you know that I know kind of thing, right? So like, that's kind of cool. I get that. I don't know. I definitely want to have like my own open events where we try sideboarding and just see what it's like. Because I would love to do like, community stuff.
Because we won't really know. Because it might end up being.
It might be trash. There might be a reason why only Magic does it and no other card game.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And like right now as it is, there's not a lot of cards.
Yeah, like
out right now. So there's really not a home for it. Not right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't even think about it until maybe 1.5, but probably after that.
But I'm thinking well after, because yeah. Like we're not saying put it right now.
Yeah.
But it means that like no, we know full well that it's not going to work right now.
So with all that, the last thing that I really want to talk about before we like end this is the distribution of the game, because so I've been following this way heavier than you have, so I know that the distribution's rough. And we have to, okay, when I mean the distribution, I mean how the game is getting into the player's hands. And we have to give the massive benefit of the doubt that, COVID exists and there's only so much that Bandai can do. Cool. Understandable. Unfortunately, the game is brand new to a lot of American audiences. Most people don't know it exists. Yeah, like, we know it's been out in Japan for a few months now. Most American players have no idea it exists. In fact, every single person that's come into my stream had zero idea that it exists. In fact, literally, one comment I have just now says, I haven't seen you stream in years. I didn't know that Digimon had a card game. So like, that's kind of been like the general consensus of the game, and only hardcore fans are going to be interested in it, which is fine. That's totally fine. But if you're trying to capture a player base, you want to make sure the product is readily available as soon as you can, and also that the product is easy to understand. So they kind of messed up on both of those regards, and one of which is kind of excusable a little bit, right? Like, if you can't get your product ahead of time, or if you can't get your product on time because of COVID, cool. I don't think anybody could be at fault for that. I don't think Bandai should be at fault for that. However, Bandai also said, hey, we've got this Digimon card game. It's got 3 sets out in Japan right now. We're gonna split it into 2 sets for you guys, for the American audiences. And those 2 sets are gonna have a mix of all 3 boosters, except they're not gonna have an even mix of everything. Booster set 1, Special Booster 1.0 is gonna have all of Booster set 1, and then some cherry-picked stuff from Booster sets 2 and 3, and some cherry-picked promos. And Booster set 2 and 3 is gonna have the rest. Also, we're gonna make buy a box promos. We're gonna make dash packs, which are special promo packs. We're gonna make another pre-release promo pack, and we're gonna make all of this with the starter decks, which, by the way, the English starter decks all have a booster pack in each one that I had no idea that existed. I thought, yeah, because the Japanese ones didn't have booster packs. But anyways, all of those plus the starter decks, and we're making a special promo early pre-release in November that is only available through pre-order through certain local game stores that you have to find. And then the game comes out in January. That, and from what I've seen from like the Dragon Ball card game, because Bandai makes that as well. They have a lot of issues with like translation and localization. Translation we're not even going to talk about right now because that's not relevant for this topic. But like localization, they've had issues with in the past, and I feel like this doesn't help capture the regular audience. In fact, like I've been in the Facebook group, and I don't know if you've been. Have you joined that Facebook group, Tony?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
but I've kind of dabbled on it.
But that Facebook group, there are so many people coming in every single day who, first off, don't know how to use the search function. Second, they always say, hey, I'm sold, this game looks tight, where do I get the product? And everyone is like, you can't get the product. And then not only on top of that, I have other people who's like, I know I can't get the product, or I know I have to pre-order the product, what the heck am I pre-ordering? And I've had a conversation with like 2 separate people like in private messages asking like, hey, you seem to know what's going on, or like I've reached out to them, like I know what's happening. And I have to explain to them what all of these products are and how to obtain them, and it's already a lot. Like Magic the Gathering has this issue today, right? And it hasn't had this issue in the past, and I'm hoping that it's just a promo thing, right? Like I'm hoping that, oh, this is a special, we just, this is our launch thing, it's just like a one-time deal that we're doing, but I don't know. And it's a lot.
Yeah, because right now, to be honest with you, I'm completely lost.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's in what cards are in what sets come out. I'm completely lost in that regard. And if it wasn't for having Untap to be able to play them and kind of get the hang of it, I probably would not be here talking about how good the game is.
Yeah, like
easily. And I would have lost interest the moment you mentioned it.
It reminds me of like to a significantly lesser extent, but it's like a card game version of like Warframe, where like I'm like, this game looks tight, where do I start? And you're like, hang on, you need a tour guide. Let me tour you into this real quick.
Yeah.
But here's where everything levels out, right? It's a card game. You can just buy the singles at some point. Not now. Which, by the way, anybody who watches this, if you're interested in this game, please do not buy the singles before Friday, because I'm literally just gonna publish this and post it like today. Don't buy the singles before Friday. You should probably wait a week after that when people are finally cracking their boxes, because the best card in the game, Omnimon, well, when 1.5 comes out, he's arguably the best, but in 1.0, he is the best card in the game. That card is going anywhere from $100 to $400 based on the artwork, because nobody has the cards in their hands yet. That price is going to tank. In Japan, obviously this isn't the Japanese market because the market has settled, but that card is leveling like between like $50 to $100 based on the art. So like, kind of a big difference. Anyways, the point is, don't buy anything at pre-release prices. That's in any card game ever. Don't do it. But yeah, I think the releases, when everything is finally out in players' hands and you can buy the singles, the question of like how do you acquire cards becomes a lot less of a problem when you can just go on eBay or go on TCG Player and then just order the correct singles you want. In fact, you can do that right now with some of the Japanese cards. Like I have my Vmon card that Tony hates so much because, yeah.
It cost me so much
I have to say, and I was going to talk about this during like my box opening, the card quality, and really if you play any card game that isn't Magic the Gathering, it's probably on par, right? But the card quality is fantastic. And coming from Magic the Gathering player, where you have these like terrible, like flimsy pieces of like paper, it's pretty good. Like I'm very, very genuinely impressed with the card quality here. Anyways, but yeah, that's what I want to talk about with distribution. I hope that they sort everything out in the future, and they probably will. It's just that as of right now, between COVID, between their weird promo launch, and I don't know, everything else that's going on with their localization team, I don't want to give them a full benefit of the doubt, but I also understand. I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
They have the experience, but also the timing of it's horrible. Yeah. So
like it would honestly, I don't think COVID would have made it much better, but still, like it's something.
You kind of have to give them. You have to give
them a little bit of a pass.
Yeah.
But okay, I think that's everything I want to talk about for this. Is there anything you want to mention? Is there any topic that we missed just about the core game itself?
I think we covered most of what we've talked about. as the game itself, it's good. I can't see any faults. I can't really see any faults with the security, with the breeding, with just the way the game.
Yeah, I think
out.
I think the game itself is mechanically sound, and I think it's just like the systems that they'll add on top of it that'll really like flesh the game out even more. And they're already showing to do a pretty good job. Oh, one final thing I really want to talk about: power creep, because this is something coming from any Magic player post 2017 knows about quick power creep. And if you play a lot of Japanese inspired card games, you know about power creep. The Digimon card game thus far has done a very good job at not doing power creep. And in fact, they've really just tried to carve out, I've mentioned this earlier, they try to carve out other avenues. And kind of a testament to this is that Omnimon or Omegamon, the best card, well, arguably the best card in the game, is still one of the best cards. Definitely a top 5, easily, probably a top 3, and some would say top 1. Still a top 3 card in all of the TCG after its entire existence so far, and it's in the first set. And there's a lot of cards that see play from the first set quite frequently. And I don't know how long it's going to go, right? Because maybe once they develop all of the different archetypes they want to develop, then they just bump the power creep up. Who's to say? But as of right now, they're doing a pretty good job, and it kind of really
seems leveled out. It's good.
This game instills a lot of confidence in me as a card game player, which is weird because I'm used to just being slapped on the side of the head and saying you're just gonna like it, you know? And I'm used to being burned so much by like power creep in Pokemon or random like well, now we're getting bans in Magic too, but before that it was just power creep in Magic. You know what, in Pokemon they have like cards that hit like 350 HP now?
What?
Yeah, there's like I think it's like the Gigantamax mons or whatever. They're at like 350 HP.
I forgot about that.
So like power creep is a thing, but so far the Digimon card game is pretty good about it.
Yeah, it's still early on.
It's definitely still early on.
But right now, I still don't feel like there's some cards that you probably won't play. But there's still ways to make them work, and that's what's fun about it.
So I think that's probably everything that I want to talk about in here. What we're gonna do in the future, because again, this was a very impromptu stream / podcast. So for anybody watching this, pardon the lack of quality, the wife yelling at me.
I will improve my side of the thing.
Yeah, just like everything is completely impromptu. Moving forward, we'll be doing a little bit more. I'll be doing some like box openings on my stream when the set actually comes in. Like maybe a week or 2 later, we'll talk about like early meta and like the price settlings and stuff. And then we'll just kind of be doing this kind of as we go. Oh, here we go.
It doesn't work or you hung up on me.
Oh,
You hung up on me.
yes, I was ending my stream. Wife. Perfect timing about impromptu things. We're just gonna keep it in.
It has to.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah. So definitely, I don't know. I think probably like a week from now we'll continue doing this again, and hopefully we'll clean things up a little bit. And then yeah, we'll just kind of see where this game goes. I'm very excited to see where it goes. This definitely won't be like a weekly thing, but it'll be an as needed kind of thing. Yeah. So, anywho, for the people that are listening on YouTube, whoever finds this, thank you. Thank you for putting up with us. And hopefully we can offer some insight and conversation. Actually, that's a big thing. I really want this to be... I'm looking at my Digimon V-Pet because I just got one of these. I really want this to be a place for conversation, right? Like, obviously the things that we talked about are points of discussion. We're not necessarily looking to be right or wrong. We're not necessarily looking to change people's minds about anything, but we really just kind of want to bring more light to the game as a whole and what's going on. So, yeah, if anybody decides that they, you know, in the comment section here, if you guys want to talk about whatever, let us know. I'll link something down to my stream, and I'll be doing a box opening Friday at hopefully 3 o'clock, provided things go accordingly. We'll shoot for 3 o'clock. And then, yeah, I think that's everything. Tony doesn't really have any social media or anything, so this is just gonna be all on my channel. So this will be all me. And yeah, Tony, any parting words?
out. Just if you feel interested in this game, please check it out. It's extremely fun. It's worth the time.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the time. Actually, on that note, another reason to potentially subscribe to my channel or even my Twitch channel, in the future, once we have paper cards, I will be doing viewer matches. So I'll hopefully be having everything like on a tabletop and we can just play over like Discord or something. Or if you guys don't have that, then we'll play on like Untap. But I want to have viewer matches and maybe one day do like viewer tournaments and giveaways and stuff. So that'll be there in the future as well.
I can't wait to see the jank decks. That's
Oh yeah, well, we're gonna have jank decks for sure. It's gonna be a good time. But anyhow, that's been everything. I'm gonna end this now, and then I'm gonna go tend to my wife who is needing something. I don't know. Okay. Peace, YouTube.